So how exactly did you learn English? I'm always curious to ask someone like from Europe. Like Germany is a very, it's a very popular language. But like, how did you end up learning English? Is something that's taught? Are both languages taught in Europe? Is generally?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, well, English we start these days at primary school year four, so elementary school year four. So they learn it when they're about like nine, but they learn like rhyming and songs. I had English as a school subject, but I think I really learned English through pop music. I
Mm.
think this is what you do. You want to understand what the lyrics are about. And at that time, we didn't have all those websites like A to Z lyrics or whatever, where you can just put in the text or the lyrics and check what they mean. You had to do this really word by word. And very often they use slang expressions that you couldn't find in a dictionary. So you came up with very interesting interpretations, but you learned the words by heart because you learned the songs by heart. You started building on the accent because I listened to bands from Manchester and also to American music and so on. And I think you really learned a very different English from what you were taught at school.
Mm. No, definitely. I'm glad you brought up the word slang because that word's going to come up a few times later when we're talking about your book and just the world of football, or as Americans know as soccer, and slang. So, like, how do you deal with that? Because slang is something that always changes, right? Slang in America, what was popular in the early 2000s, isn't popular now. Hell, what was popular 3 years ago in American slang isn't American slang anymore. So, and they don't teach slang in textbooks. Like something like slang is taught in sports. Like when I had Phil on, we talked about how his book in baseball is a whole different language around baseball. It's the
Yeah.
same thing with soccer, same thing with football. So as like an English teacher and a scholar, how do you deal with slang?
As I teach a lot of like people in international jobs, I actually don't do slang. I don't teach
Interesting.
it. I actually tell people, forget it. We had one expression that was in one of the books that I had to revise, and it was like, give me the lowdown. Can I just ask you, when I tell you, give me the lowdown, what is your understanding of that expression?
Yeah, it's just like, give me the gist of what's going on.
Yeah. Okay. So you know that, but I asked a lot of my British English teachers who live here in Germany, who work here in Germany,
Mm-hmm.
and they said, like, I have no idea what that is. So give me the update, like give me the big picture. And then we said, okay, you cannot have that in a book. But 80% of my colleagues don't even know what it means
Right.
because it's obviously written by somebody who uses this as a slang expression from their language background. Great. But it's not understood by the business community. So give me an update or just sum it up for me, wrap it up for me would be fine.
Mm-hmm.
People understand that. And I think that's the same that you see in sports, but also in anything that's like youth language. Yeah. I think youth jargon, if you think about rap music, so I started to listen to rap and hip hop like with Public Enemy, and then you listen to rap or hip hop 20 years later, you go like, a lot of things have changed, a lot of expressions have changed. Mm-hmm. So when you teach English through pop music, which I usually encourage a lot because people are so into it, it's really difficult sometimes. You listen to Queen songs, and you know Bohemian Rhapsody, right?
Of course.
Okay, and there's this famous line, scaramouche, scaramouche, can you do the fandango? Can you place that cultural reference? Can you nail where that comes from?
I believe the fandango is a type of dance.
Exactly.
Right, it's like a Spanish dance. But scaramouche, no idea.
You see, Scaramouche was a character played by Stuart Granger in the 1960s, mm-hmm. and it was a Cloak and Dagger movie.
Okay.
So in the 70s, when Queen wrote the song, people still knew the movie.
Right.
20 years on, when I was teaching the song in my classroom, I had to explain all these things line by line because my students hadn't got a clue what Freddie Mercury was singing. Mm-hmm. So it's really difficult. And unless people ask specifically about slang or jargon, I rather drop it from the agenda unless it's something they really need to learn because they work in a very specific environment.
I think that makes sense, right? Because especially with slang changes. Like you said, changes all the time. So why teach something that's going to be irrelevant in 5 years?
Yeah.
Right? So that makes perfect sense. Just keep the basic foundation. And I think sports, I haven't played soccer in a long, long time, but I think the terms are still the exact same. It's, it's a pitch instead of a field.
Yeah.
It's like a keeper instead of a goalie, like stuff like that, pretty much. But yeah, that's interesting. We're going to get into all that, but you are an English business trainer.